I'm rising in support of these cuts, but rising also to talk about the greater dilemma that we are in. It isn't simply about making cuts with this governor. We all understand we are going to have to make significant cuts if we're going to get ourselves out of this morass and then so we can deal with the issue down the line. But the governor has said we can't continue to kick the can down the alley. So instead, he simply wants to kick California in the stomach. When they elected the Terminator, people of California didn't understand that they would be his last victim before he left office. If you take a look at the governor's reforms, they have consistently been rejected by this legislature and the people of the state of California. But he is saying, now that California is hanging in the balance, I want you to adopt my reforms and my reforms only. And I want you to do it without committee hearings, without informed debate. I don't want any transparency, and I don't want any analysis other than the one I provide. Well, if you recall, the first year in office, the governor wanted to reform pensions. The legislature didn't agree. The state public employee unions, firefighters, nurses, and others didn't agree, and he was unsuccessful. So what he did is he said, I'm going to go to the people because they elected this Terminator to terminate government. And he did. We had a costly special election for him to have reforms. What reforms? That he could eliminate the checks and balances of the constitutional form of government by allowing him to make cuts without legislative override, allowing him to ignore statutes without legislative overview, change the way we elect representatives, and interfere with the First Amendment rights of those public employee unions who ultimately defeated him in the legislature. Well, the people had it before him. They had it before him, and they rejected him. In 2005, they rejected him. Recently, he had more reforms on the ballot. And he says, well, the message is loud and clear.
On the bill, Mr. Calderon.
Well, what do you mean on the bill? We talked about oil severance, and everyone got up and said we got to protect the average working person.
On the bill,
if you recall. Well, it is on the bill because these cuts are going to be rejected by the governor because we won't accept his reforms. That's the only reason. But the reforms, for instance, pension reform was rejected. And other reforms have been rejected. So what we need to do is we need to deal with the problem at hand, and we need to then deal long-term with the reforms with input from the public and input from greater minds that exist here in Sacramento. So I know that this is going to go down. I also know everyone in this room is going to vote for these cuts eventually. But it's all about leverage, and the governor said, I can't get all this stuff unless I use California as leverage. So what I'm saying is, if we're going to do reforms under stress, if we're going to do reforms with a gun to our head, then they're not going to be reforms at all. But I ask you to vote for these cuts because they're necessary and it's the appropriate thing to do.